Today I want to talk about a very simple little hack that you can use that will help you to have more productive days. Watch this video to learn more. Have you ever had one of those days where it's approaching the end of the day and you kind of look back on all the work you've done and you realize you haven't really produced much at all? Sure, you've been busy, you've been perhaps messaging your co-workers or you've been replying to emails and stuff like that, but when you actually look at what you've produced, your deliverables, you kind of realize you haven't produced much of value and you haven't really been very productive. This is actually such a common problem. I'm lucky enough that I get to travel around a bit and work in various co-working spaces. And these are spaces where you'll likely find entrepreneurs, people who are starting businesses, people who have to be very, very focused and very productive to get their businesses off the ground, right? And often when I'm working in these spaces, I'll take time out during the middle of my day and I'll just look around to see what everybody else is up to. It's unbelievable how many people are fiddling on their phones. Maybe they're on Facebook, maybe they're on YouTube. You know, it's just very hard for people to be productive. But the thing is this, if you can cultivate this skill, if you can be that person that religiously does, let's say, 4 hours of productive, focused, deep work every single day, then that's a massive point of differentiation for you. And your chances of being successful or building that business or doing whatever you need to do will just go up massively. So when I had this realization myself that it was actually better for me to try and just work 4 hours productively per day as opposed to trying to force these 15, 16 hours days that I used to try and do, I started to look at what did I do on days where I was most productive and what did I do on days where I was the least productive. Could I reverse engineer why I was productive on some days and not on others? And what I found was pretty interesting. So one of the key points from this reverse engineering is that I can pretty much tell how productive I will be in any given day by just looking at the quality of the first 15 minutes. So what do I mean by this? If I go to the office and the first thing I do is go on YouTube and I watch a series of cat videos or something like that, or maybe I'm just replying to messages that have cropped up or emails or something like that. Menial tasks that aren't really adding value and where I'm not really being very productive. What I find is if I start my day like this, then it's extremely hard for me to bring that back on track. It's extremely hard once I've gone down this path to bring that back and have a productive day. But the opposite is also true. If I come into work and I sit down and I'm just belligerently focused on having a good first 15 minutes, so I'll take something that requires brain power, that requires engagement, and focus on that. I won't let any distractions distract me, and I just focus on that for the first 15 minutes, then generally what I find is that momentum will just carry on, and then I will have a really good 2 or 3 hours to start the day, or maybe even longer. So this productivity hack that I'm talking about, I call getting your day off to a flyer, and specifically it means this. When you arrive at your office or when you're starting your day, really make sure that you nail those first 15 minutes. Choose a task that will produce value, choose a task that you need to get done, and focus on it and have a really solid first 15 minutes. There are a few reasons why I really think that this works so well, and they're mainly to do with resistance. Because let's face it, most of us have resistance when we start our workday. Quite often we don't want to work, right? We want to play video games or we want to do something else. We don't want to do anything but work, and this is especially true if we've got a huge, overwhelming, difficult task that we just want to avoid at all costs. This hack attacks this resistance really well. Firstly, because one of the funny things about resistance is that once you just go through the motions of getting started, your brain kind of switches from this procrastination mode that it's in into, oh, okay, so we're actually doing this now. It switches the focus on thinking about doing this task to actually engaging in the task itself. And the resistance tends to dissipate because of that. The second reason is that it combats overwhelm really well. So one of the problems is that if we put pressure on ourselves such that we must have a productive 8-hour day today because we've got these things that we need to do, that's really overwhelming, right? It's really difficult at 9 o'clock in the morning to think about the next 8 hours of work that you have to do. It's quite overwhelming. But we can all commit to focusing on 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes is a very small amount of time. We can all be focused for that time. That's why it works so well. Of course, once you've done those 15 minutes, your mindset changes and then you kind of build on that momentum. The third reason why this works so well is that if you can do this repeatedly over time, if you can really focus on this day in, day out for, let's say, 30 days or 60 days, then it will become a habit. And it won't be something that you have to try to do. It will become semi-automatic for you, and that's very powerful. Of course, building this into your life as a habit is easier said than done. Just with any habit, it's going to be quite difficult for you to ingrain it into your day-to-day schedule. So that's why I want to give you a few hints on how you can implement this to give you the greatest chance of success. The first thing I recommend is that you be deliberate about this. Either commit to this for the next 60 days and do it day in, day out, or don't do it at all. Don't half-ass it, basically. If you can commit to it for 60 days, then it will become habitual. The second thing is design your environment to your success. So one of the key things is that in those first 15 minutes, you don't want to be distracted. You don't want people messaging you over Slack or Skype or WhatsApp or whatever. Turn all those things off. Make sure you don't have YouTube open on your computer. That's going to distract you. Make sure people don't come over and talk to you. Maybe tell them that you're doing deep work and you don't want to be distracted, or work in a room where nobody will be able to distract you. The final thing I recommend you do is keep track of all the days that you get off to a flyer. The reason I recommend this is that studies show that when you track things, you're more likely to keep up with them and follow through on them. The best tracking devices are those that are very public. So maybe it's a poster on your wall where you mark with a red cross each day that you successfully do this. But it could also be like a spreadsheet on your computer or something like that. The idea is that you see a chain of your successes, and that makes you want to keep building on those successes. But also, if you miss a day, it's going to make you more likely to kind of jump back on track when you see this glaring empty spot in your chain. So there you are. That's my productivity hack for today. And my challenge to you is this. Do this for the next 60 days. Try and get your day off to a flyer every day for the next 60 days. After 60 days, that will be more or less habitual for you, and you'll find that you'll be way more productive. I hope you liked this video. If you did, like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you next time.